Kansas City. My name is Brandy Patterson, and I'm here with our dear friend, Tarence Maddox, Commissioner of 4th District. Terrence, is there anything you would like to say to our viewers?
Well, I would just like to say, first of all, thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to speak to my constituents and voters in the Kansas City, Kansas area, and the people across the Kansas City metro. You guys gonna have to do this, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Terrence. For those of us who don't know, can you tell us what are the roles and assignments of an elected commissioner?
Well, I'm glad that you gave me that opportunity to answer that question. I think various places that I go, I get a lot of questions from individuals that are saying, well, what does a commissioner do? What do you guys do? The main thing that we do is we set policy. We set policy that reflects the wants and needs of citizens in our community. Secondly, we approve budgets. We approve a yearly budget that counts for all the finances and money that comes through the city from taxpayer dollars. They listen to neighborhood associations, see what the people really want, and then it is up to them to bring it forth to the mayor and their fellow commissioners to try to bring those changes about. Commissioner also does a lot of things in the community. It's not just sitting in City Hall, but the commissioner should also do service and work in the community by coming out and working with different people abroad.
As an African American man growing up in the state of Kansas, what sparked your interest in politics?
Well, there were a few things that sparked my interest in politics. Coming up as a high school student, I was always a fan of American government, just the way that governments were ran, the different leaders, the different presidents. That was always my type of thing in high school. So moving forward to college, when I went to Alabama State University, I became involved with a group called He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother. And so what we would do, me and various guys throughout the campus, we would go down to Birmingham and we would get to work side by side with different individuals who was very active in the civil rights movement. And so a lot of things that we learned is if you want to change your community, a lot of times you have to do it through politics. So when getting that training in Birmingham by way of Alabama State University in Montgomery, it gave me somewhat of a platform to come back home to my community with. So once I came back home to my community, it was interesting because I had started the Books Not Bars mentoring program. I went to, at that time, Commissioner Nathan Barnes, and we had sit down, we had this long conversation, probably about 3 or 4 hours, in which he was telling me he enjoyed the knowledge that I spoke with and the different things I mentioned, and he had mentioned, had I ever thought about running for office? So I told him, yeah, I'm thinking later on in life. And so through the inner workings of God and the way that energies and different things work, I ended up running for office as a young man and getting elected. So.
And what qualifications do you have that makes you a great civic leader?
The first thing is courage. I think if you're going to run for office as a young man, as an African American man, you have to have courage. I think there's a lot of things that don't happen that are unfair in this community. And you have to have the courage to speak up. You have to have the courage to sit in meetings where everybody is thinking the status quo is okay. And you have to have the courage to speak up and say, well, what about us or what about them? And so I think the first thing you have to be a good civic leader is that you got to have the courage to be able to stand up for right when right is right if no one's doing it. The other thing, I call myself a natural born servant. And that means that as far as I can remember, I enjoy serving people. And that's kind of where I get my fulfillment from, opening doors for people, getting them things that they need. You definitely have to have the agendas of the people at heart. You have to know what people want and be able to deliver. So you got to have that. I think I would call myself a motivator. I think I'm a motivator. I know how to get people in the room and say, hey, we got to do something about this. We have to go amongst a community who is somewhat lax when it comes to politics and say, come on, y'all. Come on, y'all, we got to vote. Come on. Also, organizer. I like to organize people. I like to organize events and different programs that are outlets for the community, that allow the community to come in and be informed, that allow the community to be empowered through what is being delivered. Connecting and networking, being that bridge that can bring people together, bringing together the wants and the needs of individuals to people who actually can do things for them. That was courage, that was organizer, that was connections and networking, that was the motivator, and then you have to be a natural born servant.
What current training, programs, or workshops have you completed, that would enhance your qualities as a community leader?
Well, thank you. Again, I refer back to He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother. I'm also a member of the NLC conference, which is a National League of Cities conference. Part of the Training Leadership Institute, in which I have 32 credits. Currently, when we have conferences, we go in, we learn different things to bring back to our community. I have went to various grant writing classes, USA grant writing classes, USA Grant Writers of America. I also have certificates in different areas, managing mass media, leading in diverse generational cities, and I also have a certificate for organizing progressive programs for youth. So I've been doing some things to kind of shine up my diamond as I move forward in my civic leadership career.
Often in Kansas City, Kansas, graduating seniors leave to attend college, as you did. What made you decide to come back and get active in your community?
Home is where the heart is for me. I have a special passion and love for the community in which I was raised. I did have the option to move to Atlanta. I had the option to move to Dallas, Texas, but I decided to come back home where I could make a difference in our young people. I decided to come back home and be active where I was raised. I also feel that it was somewhat my responsibility. I had a lot of friends who either died or are in jail. I felt like I owed it to the generation, my fellow generations of young people who are coming after me, to try to create something constructive so they can become constructive human beings and grown adults. And so we made a commitment to those people who sat down and worked with us, the Fred Shuttleworths, the various leaders who stood on the front lines of the civil rights. We made a promise to go back to our communities where we were raised and make a difference. And so that was kind of one of the promises that I made.
That is great, Terence. How long have you been in office, and when are you up for re-election?
I have been in office now 3 years, and re-election comes up in spring of 2015.
Give us a quick reflection of your first term in office. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
You want the good, the bad,
and the ugly.
The good. When I think about good, I think about the networks. I've created a lot of networks with different people, different leaders in different places, different chairs of boards who can help this community become what we want it to be. I found out who to go to, when to go to, how to do the right things. And so I think that was important in my first 3 years, to find out who's who, how to connect with them, and how to network. Also, development. The 4th District has had its good share of development in the last 3 years. We've built everything from apartments to single family unit homes. When I think about the corridor from 18th Street to 27th Street, there's roughly about 15 homes that have been built from the ground up. Infrastructure, I think if any viewer was to go down 5th Street, you would see the new sidewalks, the new curbs. If you were to go down 10th Street, you would see new curbs, new sidewalks. That's all part of infrastructure, and most of those people who understand how politics and government works, once you see the infrastructure start to be redone, then you'll see development coming shortly after. So I'm inspired by what is going to come now that we are investing more money in the infrastructure. Another thing that's been good is my ability to be able to make decisions on behalf of the people. The Northeast community for a while had, one individual who was kind of being a cheerleader for the Northeast community, but I would look at it as a good thing to be able to stand up for people in the media, in the community in which I was raised. That is one thing that I have had the joy of doing, being able to speak up and say, hey, we got to do things fairly for everybody. Community analysis has been a good thing. I've got to learn this community in ways I've never known it. So when you become this elected official, you have to drive through your community. You have to get to know neighborhood association presidents. You have to get to know your neighborhoods better. And so I, as an individual who was born and raised here, appreciate being able to get to know my community better. The bad. I won't say bad. I'll say things that I feel need to be fixed or worked on. The disengagement of voters. I wish that more people in our community were engaged with voting. I wish we knew when elections were coming up. I wish we couldn't wait to get to the polls on voting day. And I feel that disengagement and not voting has somewhat sent messages to leaders in different parts of the community that we do not care about the services we receive. So I wish that the voter was more engaged in Wyandotte County, especially in the Northeast area that I represent, because I think we would see more differences that we would like to see in our community. Another thing is political harassment. As a young person, I've received my share of political harassment. I'll just be out front and downright with you. Different things, different people sending things my way. Instead of being supportive, I've had people, send nasty phone calls. I've had enforcement people follow me, be waiting outside my house when I come outside. I think that's one thing that I'm looking and expecting to change. I have contacted different people in the nation's capital, and I think that going forward in the future, I think I can do something about that. Shortcomings. The inability of the city to make a commitment to true equality. One thing I get to see when I'm sitting in City Hall, I get to see the inequality on paper. I get to see the unfair hiring practices of African Americans or minorities, to say the least. I see that we're not given a fair share, and it kind of plays back into political engagement, the first thing I spoke about, which is the fact that we're not engaged, we're somewhat left out. And I think the hardest thing that had been one issue for me is to sit inside of these meetings and to see how minorities are systematically left out, because I myself is a minority, so that's something that has also been kind of rough. It hasn't been anything really ugly, pray that nothing gets ugly, so.
And Commissioner, I will have to agree with you on getting our people to vote. So explain to the viewers, why is it so important to be involved in local governments and elections?
It's very important. I think it's very important that the citizen vote at the local level, because the individuals that you vote for, the people that you put in office, those are the people who will make the major decisions that control your life every day, or that you have to live your life around every day. Whatever it is that your issue may be, you send your voice by going to vote on voting day.
As a young commissioner, and you are the youngest commissioner elected in the state of Kansas at the age of?
Well, I was elected at 28, which I believe is on record as one of the youngest ages ever to receive a commission or council seat in the state of Kansas. So it's somewhat a feat, but at the same time, it's still important to have, it's important to have a young person there that represents the college graduate, that represents the individuals that are young who want to see vibrant things going on in their community. And oftentimes commissions and councils don't have that representation of young people who bring those vibrant ideas to the table. And so that has been one thing that I have enjoyed doing, is saying, when everybody is saying things that may have not been very acceptable to the young adult or the young professional, I've been able to say, hey, see it from this point of view sometimes, because that's what people like to see in order to move back to Wyandotte County.
What are some of your concerns facing the citizens you serve?
That's an awesome question. One of them is community blight. When I drive through the communities that I once walked and played in as a young man, I see dilapidated homes, I see vacant lots, and I see the blight that's happening that I feel may be somewhat a reflection of people not being politically disengaged. The fact that they have not voted, the fact that they are not coming forth and saying, give us what's ours. And so at the city level, where there can be things done to sustain the community, they're just not happening. A lot of times when you see community blight, that's followed by crime and all kind of various unwanted manifestations. So one thing that I see possibly in the future is maybe a commission without minority representation. As we continue to tear down homes and not build them up, every time we redo the census and we look at how many people are in what district, once those homes are no longer there and once the citizens are no longer inhabitants of a certain area, then that district is most likely moved out west. And as districts continue to move out west, that encompasses more white voters and white voters of the such, and so it makes it harder for the minority to be elected in the future because of the simple fact that we don't go to polls. And so I think that is a concern for me, that we may look up in 5 to 10 years and actually have a commission with no minority representation. I feel that as citizens, and this is me being a citizen, not an elected official, I think sometimes we miss the big picture for our personal growth. We miss why it's important for our community to receive certain things, why it's important for us to fight for equality and have the things that we need, so when our children are raised here, they actually have a community that they can appreciate. And sometimes, as long as we have a job, as long as we have food on the table, we tend to not really care about the community model. And that is a concern for me, because that is something that I've seen that's really been discussed in my first 3 years, the fact that people really don't care about community like they used to. They care about personal growth, but it's not really a communal effort. Another thing I'm concerned about is the lack of financial stability. The average person in the Northeast community is financially in poverty. And so when you're financially in poverty, crime goes up, different drug habits as a result of a lack of financial stability. And so I'm hoping that somewhere in the future that we can open up doors for people in Wyandotte County to actually acquire many of the jobs. Another thing is poor parks and rec conditions. I feel that a community is only as good as its future possibilities. And when I look at the current structure of the Parks and Rec Department, it does not bring the services that are needed for young people. You don't just open up a gym and just let kids go play basketball. The children need programs that build character. They need programs for tutoring. They need different things that teach them about health. And so when I look at, like I said, again, the condition of the Parks and Rec Department, that's a concern for me, because I feel like the probability of success for our young people are being stunted, or the growth is being stunted because of the lack of services that are being provided by our Parks and Rec Department, even though they receive those tax dollars yearly. The ironic thing about concerns is that I don't want them to sound negative, because I feel like they can be changed. And the majority of it simply comes from community engagement.
What are some of the biggest people problems you face?
If you listen to some of my main supporters, they would probably tell you racism. I'm gonna say ageism. Ageism is a big thing that I've dealt with in my last 3 years. You know, being in some rooms where many of my elders are 50 and up, sometimes they may think that I'm inadequate as a civic leader because of my age. And so ageism, I think, has been one of the biggest dilemmas for me to overcome, because I'll have to sit down and now that some of them have got to know me and know what my qualities are and my characteristics are, they're getting better. But in my first 3 years, it was just kind of, you sit in a room and everybody's kind of looking like, who's that young guy over there, and why do we got to call him the commissioner? So one of the biggest things that I probably dealt with facing people is probably ageism. And second to ageism, I wouldn't necessarily call it racism, but maybe, you know, some people discriminate on me because of my color. You know, a lot of people don't like to see a young African American male at such a young age in civic leadership, you know, and that's common. You know, I'm just being real with you. That's probably the second biggest issue I face.
What are some of the things you have done as a commissioner in your first 3 years?
I've been able to do some pretty awesome things in my first term. I've been told by certain staff members at City Hall that we've never seen people do this in their first term and different things like that. They may have been bluffing me a little bit or kind of beefing me up a little bit. But I think one of the things I've done, again, is development. We've been able to spur a little bit of development when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to opening up single-family homes and apartments. We've been able to do that in the 4th District. And I think while I'm saying this, it's safe to say that probably 80% of my district is residential. So it's not a lot of small businesses, not a lot of, different entities. It's primarily residential. So that's why I spoke about dilapidated homes and blight, because that's the majority of the issues that would face my district. I was able to help add fuel to the fire to get the John King Recreation Center back open. It was a gym that had been shut down, was receiving tax dollars, and various people were getting privileged to go in and meet and hang out in there, but it was not open to the community. One of the greatest things, and still one of the greatest triumphs I've seen in my young 31 years here in the city, is that the people said, we want our gym open, we want better possibilities and things for our young people. This gym has been closed for too long, let's get it back open. Once I was elected, I was able to help get the paperwork done. We were able to get it within the budget, and so now we have a fully running gym. Another thing was Youth Night. I was able to put together an event that happened bi-weekly for young people. Young people really, for a large part, in my opinion, have been left out in this community. And so I was able to put together a Youth Night. Then at certain points, they would reach 350, 400 young people in one gym hanging out, having fun. No problems. I think that was something to hang my hat on. Homie Where the Heart Is, which is an event to get people back to the table, understanding what different things are there for them, for their homes, and in better ways that we can improve our communities in which we live. We ain't got to move away. Wyandotte County is where our heart is. We want to be able to make a difference, so I'm putting that event on. And that was an awesome event I was able to put together. The parks upgrade through the budget. Over the last couple of years, I've asked to have our parks upgraded in the 4th District, which is Clam Park, which is Mack Park. When you go through there, they have new paved concrete, they have new basketball goals, new benches. That's one of the main things that I push for, is better possibilities and opportunities for young people. Another thing is my CNIP project, which is Community Neighborhood Improvement Project. My CNIP project, in which I have appropriated $225,000 toward the field off 9th and Parallel, which will be a field where young people can go and play football. I think it's the first actual football field that we'll have that's just catered to young people. Workforce Partnership. I was put on the Workforce Partnership Board in hopes that we can bring more jobs. Part of the Workforce Partnership, in which I was appointed by our Mayor Holland to sit on that board and represent the people in the community who are having problems finding employment. So my efforts, for a large part of my first 3 years, was spent trying to unify people. If we're not unified as a community, we'll be split on everything, and those little things that we can acquire just through being united, we don't even get those things. And so that's been one of my passions, just unite the people in my first term in office.
Let's discuss some of the controversy you've been involved in. You can't be a politician without controversy, right?
Right.
The Youth Night you hosted for the young adults going back 1 year, there was various concerns surrounding that event. Can you expand a little on that?
I can, but the first thing that I want to say when it comes to controversy, a lot of times the way you receive the story or what you heard depends on the person who relayed the news. I think it's safe to say that in politics, an elected official always has supporters and non-supporters. I want to challenge the viewer to look at me, get to know me before you just listen to what people say. But let's talk about the Youth Night. The Youth Night was pretty awesome. A lot of times the young people would say, we don't have anything to do on the weekend. We need something to do on the weekend. It was to the fine tune that on the weekends, juvenile crime goes up. So if they had places to go and things to do, then maybe we could curb crime in our community. So it was along those lines of opening up doors, allowing kids to go in and be themselves, to curb crime and then give them a place to go. And so what we would do is we would open up John F. Kennedy Recreation Center. We would have to pay for building insurance. Building insurance, $200. For the DJ was $200. Security and Parks and Rec required that we have 4 to 5 security guards for each event, 5. So that ended up being about $400 at the end of the night that we paid out. That money came directly out of my pocket. Nobody financed that, nobody funded that. That's what I had to put out. In assess to that, we would charge the students who would come in $5. The majority of the kids we let in, they didn't have money. Just to make a long story short, I never made my money back. Like I would fall $200 short, but I would still pay everybody just to make sure that the young people had a place to go on the weekend. I heard all kind of different crazy stuff that was weird. We never allowed kids to dance on the floor or do all that crazy stuff that I heard some people say. But those kids, they went in there and they danced. I can remember a few dances when I was little, and we partied hard. So there was different concerns about that. Then I was told that I was charging $10 a kid. I was told that I was overcharging. And it became somewhat a sucker punch in the gut for me as an elected official, because here I am opening up doors for young people, allowing them to go and do something on the weekend. And some people wanted to tear that apart. I still haven't seen this in Wyandotte County, a place where you can put 300 kids in a gym. They don't fight, they don't argue, no shootings, no deaths. We did that for 36 nights. On one particular night, the young man, Ramon, rest his soul, he got killed after one of our events. But I didn't get the chance to speak to the community about it. Ramon had left the youth night, at like 10:30, and Ramon was killed at like 11:30, and it all came out that he had went to some place in Gateway Plaza Apartments, got into it with somebody pursued, shot in the vehicle, he died. And then I had people that were saying he got into a fight at JFK, he got killed at the gym. We had news people that showed up to the gym like he got killed here. We were like, nobody got killed here. There were no fights here. Ramon had left early, and again, God rest his soul, a fun young man. He died later that evening. And so after that, I decided to do away with the event. And so to make a long story short, those kids enjoyed it. They had fun. And every time I see them in the community, they say, Mr. Maddox, when's the next one? And I hate that I cannot look them in the face and say, here's what I'm going to do for you. Because you have some people that are so bitter that they will try to pull stuff apart. There was a mother that came forward. There was a young lady that died, Mrs. Reed, a very bright young lady. She had got killed while being in Missouri. There was one particular night where I was trying to put on an event and allow the family to come in and, be them, have fun after the night she had killed. This was reported on the news that I went to the mother and told her that I was going to take the proceeds from the youth night and put them toward her burial. Now that never happened, and I couldn't believe that she went on the television and said that. Anybody that knows me to this day knows that I didn't go tell a parent, I'm going to give you some money for your child's burial, and then I give it to them. And I would have never said that because we never made our money back off the youth nights. I never broke even on the event, so I would have never promised a parent that I'm going to take the proceeds from the event and put toward a funeral. So that was all the controversy surrounding the event, just to open up doors for young people. And I feel like when I seen the interview with Mrs. Reed, I really felt like I was thrown under a bus, because I couldn't believe that somebody was actually going on television and that would say I took advantage of their family when I never even ever mentioned receiving any money or taking money for the family. That was crazy. But you may have something else up.
Let's discuss your incident at LegoLand at Crown Center in KCMO. What is your side of the story on that?
And I'm glad you guys gave me the opportunity. I would like to personally apologize to the viewers for having to see their commissioner on television acting up. I also apologize to the young people who I also have an influence with and I deal with frequently. And so again, I apologize, and I appreciate those supporters and people who have been there right through the stuff. They understand that everybody's not perfect and that we are all striving to be better. So I appreciate that, and I do apologize. But to speak a little on LegoLand, just to clear the air, we had decided to take my son over to Sea Life, which is the aquarium that's next to LegoLand. So we had purchased tickets in advance online. When we got there, the people were saying we couldn't use them, they weren't valid. And so the request for refunds, there were different things that were said that created a hostile environment. I should have been the one to still walk away and move away from the situation. So at the end of the day, it was a weird situation. I had to apologize to my son afterwards. The police approached me and asked me what had took place in LegoLand, and I think that when they found out that I was an elected official, it turned everything up a notch. And I'm glad that I had that experience. Whether people believe it or not, I'm glad that I had that experience because it showed me a lot. I thought it was pretty weird that the news stations ran stories for a whole month, week after week, these different stories on LegoLand, and they won't even cover our city's political the election day. They won't cover the percentages. You'll see it one time at the end of the night. they don't even follow what we do politically in this city, and then this video turns up, and then it's like you running this video. Being elected as a 31-year-old, I'm a student of the game, and I understand media's role in the perpetuation of young black males and how we're inadequate at this, or we have anger problems. I understand their over willingness to try to put those pictures and that viewpoint out there, and so I think it brought on a lot of supporters. A lot of people in the community rallied. They called me and told me that the camera people were actually calling them like, can we come to your house and show you this footage? I've never seen a media news station say, we got footage, we want to come to your house and show you this. And it almost seemed like it was a campaign against me, not just putting footage up that happened at LegoLand, but trying to create a campaign against me. But what they meant for bad, God meant it for good. And so, like I said, I bounced back. I'm right back moving. I'm working on behalf of the people, putting the stuff out there, and so just kind of moving forward. But I do apologize to the constituents and the voters and the people who've seen that.
The ethics department put a public censor on you. What is in a public censor, and why was this put forth on you?
A censor is basically like we're putting out information on this commissioner of things that he's done wrong over the last 3 years. The whole thing that was unethical about it is that what had happened at LegoLand hadn't been handled out in court. So to put out a censor with something that were just allegations, to me, wasn't very ethical at all. It seems that our ethics department in this city is kind of a checks and balance thing put in place to keep the commissioner in check. I think it has no due process. Again, an elected official has supporters and non-supporters. A non-supporter, if I'm the commissioner, can go up and say, he came outside and kicked my dog. And they put it on file in the ethics department. They don't research it. There's no footage. I kicked the dog. I'll look up and say, can I see my ethics file? And they'll say, there's an anonymous person here that said you kicked their dog. There's no real due process in the ethics issue. But I'll say that the censor they put out had like 9 allegations in it that I had did this, that, and the other. 3 of them were accurate. You know, the 6 things that was the most criminalizing, they had no merit to it.
We know that you are a hard worker and that you represent the best interests of the citizens. Aren't you now being mentored by the renowned Minister Sharpton?
Yes, I do share a somewhat long-distance relationship with Minister Sharpton, who does television, has his own television show now, and I think a lot of things that he's dealt with in his life as a young boy, I dealt with in my, you know, our lives are somewhat identical. And I think I'm still moving up some of the ladder, so we ain't identical because he's, you know, a much older guy than me. But I do receive and enjoy having him as someone that can say, you may not want to go this way or do this way because you can miss some of the hiccups that come with learning.
Will you be running for the re-election in 2015?
Yes, ma'am. I'm gonna be right back here running for the election in 2015. I think my political career here locally has just begun. I will be back in 2015. I have a lot of supporters that are saying, let's go, we got to move. I do want to say to the viewers that watch out for the individuals who are trying to split the vote. I was told of a past mayor that has been calling like influential leaders in the black community and saying, we've got to find somebody black to run against him. We got to find somebody black to run against Tarence. And so I want the viewer to pay attention to that. Just watch with a watchful eye, and don't be led astray by the he say and the they say. My phone number has always been the same. I walk up and talk to people in the street, wherever I am, and so I'm always touchable. Just avoid the rumors because that comes with politics, and understand that we are trying to move and put things together here in Wyandotte County.
Thank you, Terrence. This interview has been very interesting and educational. Is there anything else you would like our viewers to know as you're going forth with your 2015 campaign?
There is something that I would like for the viewer to know. I want the viewer to know that my first term in office was very insightful. I learned a lot. I learned the groundwork of what it means to actually be a commissioner, from the standing committees to the commissions to all of the different things that it takes to unite the people and move them forward. And I also want to say that moving forward, we have to go to the polls. We have to get our relatives out. We have to make sure we're registered to vote. And again, we have to vote. and I'm going to stress this all the way going into my campaign. Don't split the vote. When I think about over the last 10 years, the commissioner who has represented the 4th District, for 7 of those years, many of the people in the Northeast community felt like they did not have fair representation. But now we have fair representation, and we have someone who is more than willingly to go above and beyond to make sure that we have a fair chance, a fair shot in the things we need to move forward as a community. And so I thank people for praying for me. I thank the pastors who prayed for me. I thank the mothers and the supporters and the people that pat me on my back and say, just keep your head up. All those people make this job worth living. And again, I'm a natural born servant. I serve people. That's what I believe. I know that it was God that told one of the disciples, he is the greatest among you shall be a servant. And so I challenge people to be servants. Serve your community, serve people. Do the things that are important. And that's what I'm here for as an elected official, to serve people and to make sure that we have the things we need, not only in the 4th District, but in the urban core, which is where I was born and raised. Thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to speak to viewers. Thank you for coming in and interviewing me, and I appreciate this.
Thank you, Terence. Again, we would like to thank the viewers for tuning in with us. We would also like to thank Commissioner Tarence Maddox. Don't forget, get out and vote. Support Commissioner Tarence Maddox in his 2015 campaign. And again, I'm Brandy Patterson, signing off. Thank you.